Hi everyone, it's Anja here and I'm back with another video for Ophelia Talks, and today I am going to tell you all about how I made my 5-stranded stash buster blanket. Now this blanket ate away at my stash, unbelievable, and it's really lovely to make. It was a quick project and it is so heavy, it's amazing. I really love this blanket. Let's get started. So for this blanket you will need a selection of the bigger sized hooks, so you can choose the one that is the best for the fabric that you want to achieve. Scissors, darning needle, a tape measure, because we're going to measure our chain and not count the chains. And we are also going to be using cakes of 5 strands, and I am making them with my yarn winder. Now I did start off by using just the 5 balls loose like that and just holding the strand together, and that was really hard work. So I have to admit, using the yarn winder to first make the cakes of the 5 strands is much nicer to then crochet your blanket with those. First of all, let me show you how to make your cakes. So take hold of 5 strands of yarn, 5 colors that you fancy together, and hold them together. Put them through the tension guide of your yarn winder, then put them into the notch, pull it down really tightly, and then start winding. It's as simple as that. So while I'm winding the yarn, I make sure I hold the 5 strands together and I really tension the yarn for going onto the cake, so my cake is nice and tight. Every time a color finishes, I tie on a next color, just one that I fancy, and then I keep winding with that color into it. This ensures that my cake is nicely variegated for the blanket, of course. So you just keep winding until your cakes are full. I've made quite a few cakes and I just spend an hour 1 week, for instance, making the cakes. I made about 5-6 cakes, and then I had quite a few evenings of crochet pleasure. A lot better to make your cakes first and then just sit and crochet and use them up. So check this out. I am changing color and you'll see that the cake changes color as well. My blanket is made up of all Starcraft Special DK. It is 1m20 by 1m85, and that's 4 by just over 6 foot. My blanket weighs 2 kilos 570 grams, which is nearly 6 pounds. First of all, before we actually start, I want to make sure that you make sure that these 5 strands are your 1 strand. So everything you do, you will have to make sure that you are actually using the 5 strands and that not one strand is missing, for instance. That is why I've used, in this particular instance, I've used quite different colors so that immediately you would see that one was missing. Okay, so let's make a slip knot. Insert your hook. Now I'm using an 8, and when I first started I used a 7, but I didn't think that was sort of flowy enough, so the 8 was just perfect. So it might be that you have to use a 9 or also an 8. So just, you know, you won't be able to tell unless you do some. So in the beginning it might be worth just feeling and trying out what your hook size feels like, what the fabric feels like, and then you might have to, you know, restart or redo or whatever. Now today I am going to make a sample, so it might be worth you making a sample as well, and then once you've decided what size hook you're going to use, then start your big blanket. So for the sample and for the big blanket, you are going to start chaining. And when I started, I chained from my fingertip to my other elbow, and that was about a chain of about 120 centimeters. Then I did a turn and I started putting the V stitches on, and that will expand your chain a little bit because we're only using every 3rd chain, but it will make it longer. Now I did not count my chains, but I measured once I was putting my V stitches on. I measured how long it became, and when it was 1.20 meters, I stopped, and I had about this much in chains left. Okay, so that is what we are going to do today as well. So I've just chained an amount, I have no idea how many. Okay, I've got about 25 centimeters now, so you do about 1.20 meters, okay, for your big blanket. Then we are going to consider this one as our last stitch. So into that last stitch we are going to do a turning chain. Now we are going to start every line and finish every line with a double crochet on its own or a turning chain. So this is our turning chain. Now we are going to start with the first V stitch. So we are going to skip the turning chain, skip the base of the turning chain, then we are going to skip 1 chain. And then in the next one, we are going to do the first V. So skipping 1, 2, 3, 4 stitches, working in the 5th, you're going to go in and you're going to pick up, as you would normally, the base of the V, but of course we are working with multiple strands here. Okay, so I've just done my first double crochet into that chain there. So you chain 1, then you do a second double crochet into the same location. So you yarn over into the same location and you pull up a loop, yarn over again, pull through 2, which in fact means pull through 10, yarn over and pull through 2 again. Okay, so there we are. So we've got our first V. Okay, so now we're ready for our second V. So skip 2 chains into the 3rd chain, picking up the 5 strands, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Chain 1 into the same location for the next double crochet for the V. And each time my eye is scanning the amount of strands that are on my hook. If I lose any, or I'm missing some, or there's a double up or whatever, I try, and see, this is a little bit more difficult to get in, but See, that red one is going to the wrong, there we go. Okay, so I've got the 5 there as well. You go and you continue doing your double crochet. So you're making sure that each time you are doing your stitches, you are in fact picking up those 5 strands. And if not, if some strand is left behind at some point, I'm trying to make it go wrong, but it won't work, then just stop. The moment you see it, just stop. Try and correct it if you can, but if not, just take out your hook, undo it, and do it again. That's much easier than, you know, trying to correct something that you won't be able to correct. So I am now doing V-stitches in every 3rd chain. So 1, 2, into the 3rd. See, look here, I've picked up 2, there's 2 there, so better just try again. There we go, okay. And for my blanket, I did 35 V-stitches. So there's 35 V-stitches in every row that I do. For the sample here, I am just going to do 5 V-stitches. Look, something's gone wrong here. See, now I've got 2 red ones, and I can correct this by just going into that last red one. There we go, see? So I'm going to do 5 V-stitches because that will be the width of my sample. So here we go. There we are, yeah. And when I did the 35 V's for my blanket, that's when I measured it, and it was 1.20 meters wide, and that's what I wanted. So I'm going to do 1.20 meters wide, and I'm going to do the height of 180, but just, you know, you just keep going, obviously. So now I have my 5 V's, or you will have your 35 V's for your blanket. And now I'm going to do my last stitch of the row, which is a double crochet. So I'm going to skip 1 chain, yarn over into the next chain. I am going to pick up the V, and I am going to do a double crochet. All right, okay, so something went wrong here. So there's an extra strand. I can quickly go through that, and that's corrected it. Okay, so that's my double crochet for this side. So basically we have on one side a double crochet and on the other side a double crochet to make the sides, or sometimes of course these are turning chains. So this is now the width of my sample, or also the width of your blanket, and you can measure it. And your sample should be about, you know, 1.20 meters. I'm at about 18 centimeters here. I do have this bit of chain left over, but I'm not going to worry about that. I am going to just undo that later on. I'll show you how to do it. So first of all, let's get turned and do a turning chain. Turn your work, and then you're going to start doing your V's of 1 double crochet, 1 chain, and 1 double crochet into the chain spaces of the row below. So there's no more counting and there's no more picking up V's. All you need to do is go to the next chain space and place your V in there. And I have to say that using the multiple strands does get easier. It's a lot easier for me now. My first rows were a little bit slower than this, but look, something happened. Okay, I've got 4 strands. This one is hanging loose, so I know I've done something wrong. So you come out, go back into the previous loop, pull that out. Yes, there we go. Okay, so I did get something wrong there. So chain 1, and then we continue our work. So do keep a very close eye on all your strands. Have I got them? Yes, I have. Okay. Okay, what was I saying? Yes, my first rows were a little bit more difficult. Also, this is the time, if you are making a sample, this is a time for you to decide which hook you're going to use. So feel the fabric that you are creating now. Is it soft? Is it squishy? Is it still pliable? Is it hard as cardboard? this is the time for you to try out a different hook, smaller, bigger, and see which it is that you like best. Okay, and then obviously if you are making the little sample, it's a good way of doing this, and then of course now you will be ready to make your big blanket. Okay, so we've come to the end of our row, and we are going to have to do our double crochet here. Now here we have to pick up into that chain of the previous row, and this is the V from the double crochet that belongs to the double crochet. So here, this V here belongs to the turning chain. So I am going to try and pick up these two V's from the back. So this is that third strand there, so the third V, and I am going to try and get that on my hook. There we go. Okay, I do make an effort to make sure that I go into that location. If you can't, oh, I forgot to yarn over. If you can't, then you know, you'll have to just go into the chain space. That's fine as well, but I like to try and make sure I go into the correct location, because that will give me a nice straight edge on my blanket here. Okay, so there we go. So I've done 35 V's, so make sure yours is about 35 V's and 1 meter 20 wide, and then of course from now on it's just doing this basically, chain 2, doing your V stitches, and then a double crochet into that last chain at the end. And of course, each time making sure, look, something went wrong here. Okay, I've got far too many strands on there. So I think I need to go through those last 3 ones. Will that sort it? Yes, that's it. So you do need to make sure that you see what's happening with all those strands. You will get used to it, but even so, it is a little bit, you know, it's an added thing that you need to, yeah, look here. Oh, there we go. That was easily sorted. Okay. Okay, so we've done a couple of rows. We've established that this is the width of the blanket that you want to make. So 35 V's, and then each time you also have a turning chain and a double crochet to make your sides. You can now turn your attention to the leftover chain that you have. Now, doing it this way will save you a lot of headache, you know, for when you are doing your first row of V stitches. But of course, we now have to get rid of this. So what I do, I just undo that knot here. Let's see if I can undo it. And to be honest, I just undo the chains, and I'm not worried about it. There we go. Let's undo that. There we are. And now we're just going to be undoing the chains. Don't pull it. Be very gentle, and they will easily come undone. Obviously, only do this when you have decided on your width. There we go. Right, so a few more. There we are. See, there we are. And then here, the last one, I just pull that closed, and there we are, sorted. And I'm just going to cut off the long tail, sew it in, and that's it. There's no worries about, you know, how long my starting chain should have been. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you very much for watching. Do stay around for a little bit longer, because I will have some footage of my finished blanket coming up now. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!